Okay, so part one of today's webinar, we're going to be starting with buyers and how we work them in LockedOn and make sure that they're going into the system correctly. Now, there's quite a few ways that buyers can enter your system. The main way that we're seeing with a lot of our LockedOn users is that LockedOn can actually start capturing all of your buyer inquiries directly into your account. So how this works is that we set up a capture from REA or domain, and any buyer inquiries on your properties will be caught into the inquiry section. And if we look at my inquiry section now, I've put myself in as an example that I've inquired on 8 Skinners Avenue in Dolls Point. Now, if you're an office uploading to REA or domain from LockedOn, the lead capture is something that is automatically turned on. If you're a single user in an office and you do have listings on REA domain, there is other ways that we can capture your leads into the system. So if you don't have this set up yet, it's a really good tool. Reason one is that it saves you data entry. But the second reason I'm going to show you is because of the automation as well around this. And this will be an insight into our first trigger. So as the inquiries come in, we have the information captured here. But let's look at this. In the engine, we have an area called triggers. Now, if you don't have your triggers installed, you can install them by going to the engine packs. You need to be an admin user to do this. And you will have an option in here to install your triggers. You'll see a big green button that says install. If you don't have them on and you think after this you'd like to, you just hit install pack and it will turn on your triggers. So inside the engine area, we have triggers, and I'm going to go into the view all option. When you install your triggers, you will be given 6 standard triggers that we have in LockedOn. Now, we're going to be adding more triggers to the system as the months progress, but these are the 6 standard ones, and throughout today's training, I'll be talking about these triggers as well throughout each part they relate to. So the first one, starting right off where buyers come into the system for inquiries, is the inquiry response. So basically this trigger I've got active, so you can edit the triggers and you can turn them active, and all of the triggers are all set up ready to go using our standard defaults. If you want to change them, it's better you speak to support team after and they can help you with this. So the inquiry response, when you turn this active, means that any lead that comes from REA or domain automatically hits the account. We will be sending them an email with this property's information, and we'll be sending them an SMS if they have a mobile number saying thank you for an inquiry from the listing agent. Now, I'll show you what these look like when we process the client. So when you have a client captured in the inquiries area, it's your job to call them back, speak to them, and before you call them, you might want to see if they match someone already in your database. So we can see a match is found there, which is a good thing. If there's no match, it will tell you no match. When you've spoken to your client, you've called them or emailed them, and you now know that you want to process them, you hit the process option, and you're given 2 options here. One is to work with the client, which will create them as a new client. If they're already in the system, it will match them based on the email or mobile, or you can archive. So archive means that you do not want this person in your database. They'll still be linked to the property, but they will sit in the archived inquiry area. So we'll hit process, add it to Luke, and hit the process inquiry. Now, because I'm already in the system, this has matched me as a buyer. So I want to take this one step back. Luke is a new buyer. He's made an inquiry on 8 Skinners. If we go to my record, just to show you what the system would do automatically, we'll use the send email option. Now, the system would automatically know that the inquiry trigger is on. It will use the template called trig inquiry response, auto inquiry email. It will then select what property the inquiry was on for. So this is all happening automatically. And it will generate an email to your buyer as soon as we process the inquiry that looks like this. Your logos, the suburb, a nice little message, goes into the property brochure with all the content, view online, watch video, and the agents that are attached to that property. And that sends off instantly to your buyer. Now, the second part of the inquiry trigger is that it will also send an SMS. Now, you can turn off the SMS if you like, but if we hit send SMS, we can see here that in the trig, we have the inquiry reply SMS, and we could just update a preview. Oh, sorry, I need to select the property that it was about because it needs to know that. It will automatically do this, and it will then send this SMS off to your buyer. So thank you for inquiry on the property. I will be in contact with you shortly. Please save my number. If you have any questions, you can reach me on this anytime. Regards, Luke, LockedOn Real Estate. So as a first impressions, any buyer coming into your office from REA or domains getting a really nice email instantly and a really nice SMS sent to them. So that's a pretty good first impressions. Now, you process the inquiry. You've moved it into a client, and when you process the first person, it opens up the buyer criteria. And we're going to get back to this a bit later, but what it's basically saying is that you've processed a buyer, you should turn them as active, and you should capture their buyer criteria. What are they looking for? Beds, bath, car, price range. I want to come back to this in a second. Now, if we're looking at putting a general client into the system, in the clients area, you'll be able to use the actions add client. Now, I'm not going to put myself in again, but I just want to show you the duplicate checks in the system. So if you do go to put yourself into the system, or someone into the system, and it's got their email or mobile, it's telling you that that person is already in the system. So we don't allow duplicates. There is different settings on each office depending on how you want your team to work, but the basic rule is that we do not allow duplicates in the system, and it's up to your office where you're sharing data or not. In my office, if another agent puts in someone with a mobile or email and they hit add, it will open up that record and add them as a secondary person, a secondary contact to that record. Now, if we look my record up using the searching clients, when we go into my particular record, the easiest way to learn LockedOn is to navigate from left to right with these top menus. So if we start at summary, this is a full overview of everything that's happened with your client. Now, this is my test client. There's a lot of activity in this timesheet that we have. Everything's in date and time order. And we can see if we just wanted to look at the notes, we can filter just to the notes. Okay, if you want to look at your appointments, you can filter to notes and appointments and turn off that. If you want to see everything, it's all activity. One of the main core fundamental rules with any CRM is that good follow-up and notes are important to building a good relationship. So in the actions option, we can use the add note, and we can write a note against our client and store that we had an inquiry on them. And you can see it's in date and time order there. These appointments are booked in for the future, so they'll sit above. Now, as we're looking at adding notes into our client, the next tab is our information. An information general tab is all about our category. So meeting a new client, we'll then go into the lead source. So how do we find out about them? We'll say it was from realestate.com. Are they a potential seller? Potential seller means they own a property that you could sell. Well, we're going to say they're not, so we're leaving that off. Now, depending if you're a single user or multi-user office, you'll be able to say, well, look, Luke and Dave are working this client. The gold person is always the primary, and only the admin users can change who the primary agent is. So the primary agent gets used for all the office bulk communication to this person, but you can have multiple people attached to this record. So Dave and Ian are also working them, but I've removed them now. Important notes about your client is really important for when you're making phone calls. So I would put in things here that you do not want to lose in the summary information. So this would be things like their kids' names, maybe important things like you can see that they like the Manly Seagulls. So when the NRL's back on, you can be talking about their football team. These are things that you just want to make sure are top of mind when you ring the client. And you'll see this when I actually start doing phone calls, how important it is. We then have our tagging. So all the tagging in LockedOn is in one area. You can customize and set up your own tags. That is all controlled in the engine by the admin user in the customizations area. Don't need to get into that now, but you do get some default ones with LockedOn. And looking at my default tags, we're going to put myself into the buyer category hot, and we'll also put them into a VIP list. And then we can update that client record. So all their tagging is now set up and attached to them. In the contacts area is where you have the first person you've added. You can add more people to this client card. So if we look at Natalie Newton and we want to put in their email, we can add this to the system against her record. It will also duplicate check this particular email if it already exists. Now, because Nat has her own email, you can also have her own contact settings. So when you hit the edit contact area, inside the contact settings, we can say do not email. We want to store her name and her email, but we don't want her to get emails. We just need to store her information for now. If she had a mobile, we can say do not SMS. But each contact on a record has their own settings against them. So we're going to save that and say that Nat doesn't want to receive emails, but Luke does. When you're looking at a record and you have both the emails and SMSs here and you want to communicate with them, you can use the send option. So sending allows you to send an SMS, email, or letter to the client record you're on. If I say send email and they both had a valid email, it would send to both of them. You would see Luke and Nat's email here, but Nat's is unsubscribed. So An important thing with version 2 is that when you communicate using the send option, it's going to send to both or all records or clients you have on this card. So you could have husband, wife, and all their kids' details there. And if you hit send SMS, it would send an SMS to all of them. So that's one important thing to know, is that we contact every person on the card when we're using the send functions. Now that we've added people to this particular area, the other important one when adding clients is that the address, 56 Malua, is their postal address. You do not need to add this to anyone below the record. So the first address sits on the first person, what we call the primary contact. And then Natalie's address will also be the top one because it flows down to all of them. So no need to add the same address to the same person underneath. You really just want Nat, her work numbers and emails, which are unique, not the address. So then we move on to the buyer criteria section here. Oh, sorry, one thing I forgot to mention here about the next trigger. LockedOn has a really cool function in the triggers called the birthday trigger. And if we look at the edit option here, you can store the birth dates against each person. So my birth date is the 11th of the 9th, 1984. So with this stored against your record, and if we go back into the engine and look at the triggers, the next trigger I want to look at is the happy birthday trigger. So this particular trigger, when you edit it and turn it on, will send an SMS and an email to anyone who has a birthday at 9:30 in the morning from your account to your client. And it checks every morning for anyone who has a birthday that day. So if we go to my client and we pretend my birthday is today, let's have a look at the standard defaults you've got. If you hit send SMS, the system will send this SMS to anyone who has a birthday in your system. Happy birthday from all the team. Should be updating a preview there, maybe. Don't. Oh yeah, Natalie's mobile's not there. There we go. So it's going to me, sorry. Hi Luke, happy birthday from all the team at LockedOn. We hope you have an amazing day. Regards, Luke. Okay, so that's the SMS that goes out. Now, if we choose to do a send email, and we look at the happy birthday standard template, which is the trig happy birthday, it will then put in a nice logo of yours, birthday cake from everyone at the team wishing you a happy birthday, signed off with your signature. And again, if you're really capturing all of your vendors and all of your purchasers and maybe tenants and landlords' birthdays in the system, you can have some really good contact automatically going out every morning whenever it's someone's birthday on their particular birthday each year. So that's another really important thing to capture in the contact section, is their birthday. Now, looking at the buyer criteria, this is the first part we get to where we kind of see some of the tools around buyers. So when we look at the buyer criteria, you want to turn your buyer as active. It tells you how long they've been active for. So I was active from today. And we can then enter a criteria for them. You can label these if you want, and you can set it to be sales or rentals. So if you are tracking people for potential tenants, you can put in potential tenants criteria and match them to your rentals. But today we'll focus on sales. With the sales criteria now, I can say that I'm looking for 2 beds, 2 bath, 1 car. In the property type, we're looking for a house. We might have apartment, might have townhouse. We also might have unit. Oh, I put block of units. I want townhouse and I want unit. Okay. We can then select the suburb. So using Google Maps, we can type in a suburb, drop that in. We then can enter a price range, which is the most important. So 3 million will be my price range, and I can update the criteria. So now that this is updated, we can see there's a little button here that says click here to view matching property. So if I click this, it takes me to the properties tab, into the listing matches. And in my office, I have 4 properties that match this particular buyer. Now I'm going to show you how you can send these off to your buyer in a second, but here's one really cool tool we added to LockedOn probably 2.5 months ago, which has been getting amazing feedback, is this appraise matches. Now this isn't for every buyer you put into the system. This is for the buyers you put in that have a really specific criteria around price and what they're after. Looking at this as an agent, I know that Luke and Natalie are financed, ready to go, and they want a property. And some of my listings, I only have 4, don't match them. But I look at my appraised matches and I think, well, that one in 16 Malua Street that I appraised on the 19th of May, 2017, that's a really good reason for me to call my vendor and let them know I have a buyer who is super hot, ready to go. Don't want to waste your time, but if you're thinking of selling, we can get them through. So when we click on that, I can see the vendor's details over here on the right. I can call that vendor and I can speak to them about the buyer. It's a really good tool for you to just jog your memory of past appraisals that may match this particular buyer you've put in. So use that to your advantage. Great reasons to call potential vendors. Now back at the listing matches. Now in the listing matches area, we have 4 properties. We've spoken to our client, we've captured their criteria. I call this first impressions. Well, it's nearly second impressions now because we have the automation sending to them. So the first impression of your business is pretty good already because they've got a nice SMS and an email from you. But once you've qualified them and spoken to them, you want them to know that you've basically listened to them and put them into the system correctly. And I always teach people to sell the benefits of your CRM. It's something that not many agents do, and it's something that shows, how proactive you are. So when I'm speaking to Luke, I say, look, I've put you into the system. I have 4 properties that match you. I'm just going to send you an email that has these properties. But also now, because we have your criteria captured, every time we get a property that matches your criteria, we'll send you an SMS or an email just listed about that before it goes to market. And I'm going to show you that step next. So step 1 is you hit send on their record email. You use our template called buyer match, and this will then load in the properties that match this particular buyer. You'll be able to see these here, the 4 properties. It's got a nice little message that I can change over here on the right. If you make any changes to that, you can update your preview again. But when you're ready, you can hit the send option, and that will send off to your buyer with the 4 properties that you have that match them right now. Now, phase 2 of this is that you've sold the benefits of your data in that database and said, look, whenever we get a property that matches you, we'll send you a just listed. So if we go into a property that he matches, let's pretend it's a new one. So 8 Skinners Avenue is the one he made an inquiry on. And let's pretend this is a brand new listing today. If I'd been capturing buyers for the last 6 months on all my other listings and putting in the criteria correct, whenever I get a new listing, the buyer match will automatically find all the buyers who suit this particular property. Now I have 7 buyers here. If I want to send off a just listed to them, all of the buyers, I can use the send email option, and it knows out of the 7 buyers, I have 6 emails. In the templates area, I can then select the just listed, and it will show me the property that I'm on with all the photos and marketing, the agent's details, buttons to view the video and view online, your branding, and we can go to the bottom and confirm it's going to 6 people and hit the send option. So that email has now gone out to, let's pretend 600 people. Here is one important thing that we train heavily on for new agents is when you start sending off just listers to a lot of people, you need to give the email roughly 24 hours or till the next morning. You'll then use your reports, emails, and you'll look at your email stats to use them to your advantage. So when I look at my just listed 8 Skinners that I've completed in a previous webinar, we can go into the details of this and see that it had 12 opens, which is extremely high. It's had 92% open rate. I'm not really interested in who opened it. What I am interested is that the buyers that opened it who clicked on the link to either watch the video or to view the property online. Now, if I click this, it shows me the 10 unique people who opened my email and clicked on the link. Now, in LockedOn, you have many options of what you can do with these people. You can send them an SMS by going send SMS. You could send them an email again. But one of the most powerful tools inside the system is getting small lists of people and then turning them into a hit list. And using the actions option, you'll see this throughout the rest of the training. We can now say, create a hit list of these 10 people, which now turns LockedOn into a telemarketing machine. And you or your PA can the day after start ringing every buyer by going to the first person, actions, view summary. You've got all of George's information. You ring George. You say, I've got the perfect property for you. You may have got an email. You know that they've opened it and read it. And you start speaking to him about getting him through the property first. You then take notes by going action, add notes, and you then move to the next person. You then do the same for Braden. Make the call, speak about the property, take some notes, go to the next person, next person. And you or your PA is now making 10 of the hottest calls you can around a new listing before it's probably had its first open to get as many people through that first one as we can or prior to that first open. So use your email stats around all your just listers to your advantage. Within 24 hours, you want to be making those calls and hitting those buyers that have opened and played your video or clicked on your link. Okay, that's a super high conversion list and super, really, really easy calls to be making. Okay, so let's go back into clients, look up my record, and look at the next phase of working with your actual buyers. When you're working with a buyer, there's 4 levels of interest. There's the inquiry, which we've already talked about. So the inquiry comes in, they get an auto reply, we speak to them, we get their buyer criteria, they're now on the database, they're getting all the just listeds going out, they're going to be getting your newsletter that I'm going to show you soon, which goes out on a weekly basis. But now they start interacting with you around properties. So in the activity area, we can see the one inquiry. In the inspection tab, we can see they've already inspected another property with us back in the 11th of May, 2020. Now, if you're using HomePass, which is the domain free home open app, it's free and you can use that and it syncs directly in with LockedOn, Luke and Natalie may turn up to your open home and you've added them to the property. Now, if you don't have a home open app and you're collecting names on pen and paper, you have to add your person to the system and you'll use the actions add inspection. So for this, I'm not going to use HomePass. I'm going to pretend I'm coming back to the office. I'm putting them in for 8 Skinners. We'll say the open was today at 9 a.m. Okay, this is important. These are 2 new things that we've put into the inquiries and inspections area is their interest level. Now, everyone defaults to being interested. You can then qualify them to say they're not interested, unknown, or very interested. They're 4 very clear levels of if someone interested in a property. So we're going to say they're very interested. The lead source came from realestate.com. Their price guide will be $850. And we can put in some private notes. Drives black BMW. That's for you, not for the vendor. Vendor notes is seems keen to buy another investment. When you hit add inspection, it then puts the very interested tag and all the details against your client. Now, back at the inquiries, this is another really important thing for your inquiries. When you're editing your inquiries, you have the interested, not interested, unknown, or very interested. So again, when I process the inquiry, I'm going to mark them as very interested, and that will then show up on the property. Now, if your client requests a contract or they make an offer, you need to add that against them as well, and you do that on the client. So I'm going to add that they requested a contract today as well. That was for 8 Skinners. There it is. And it was today's date. And we'll just say, seems keen to make offer. This is for your vendor. If they make an offer, you should be recording all of those. You go to actions. You then add offer. We'll say that their property was 8 Skinners again. They made an offer today. That was for $850. Was it accepted? We don't know yet. And we just put in here first offer. And we've now tracked 4 levels of interest. Now, imagine you're doing this for 30, 40, 50 buyers on a property. So you're dealing with a lot of different people doing these 4 stages. But where it all collates is when we go back to the listing. And as a listing agent, you can quickly go into the activity area. Now, in the activity area, you can see you've had 4 inquiries and they're all very interested. Again, if Luke Smith suddenly became not interested, I would edit this and I would put not interested and update that. Inside the inspections, again, we can see our levels of interest and we can see everyone who's inspected it. We also see our contracts and our offers. Now, the inspections part and the home open part leads me to our next trigger, which is for every inspection you put into the system, LockedOn will automatically 15 minutes after send them an SMS saying, thank you for attending the property. Here is my contact details. We'll be speaking to you in the next few days. Then an hour after, when they're at their next open home, they get an email from you that says, thank you for attending the property. Here is the brochure and all the details. So let's pretend that Luke attended the open home, which I did today, and we'll look at what these look like. So if we go into the engine and we look at the triggers, view all, this one is called the property inspections. And again, to turn this on, you hit edit and you activate. You turn that on and you save it and hit edit. This means that every inspection that goes into the system, 15 minutes after the inspection time and 1 hour after the inspection time, they're getting an SMS and an email from you. So back at Luke's record, we're going to go into my record and look at the send SMS option. And I just want to show you what this does automatically. So thank you for viewing the property. This would go automatically to your buyer as they're walking around your home or leaving it. Most people are there. Whoop, just got their nut again there. So most people are sort of walking around the home, may leave within 15 minutes, but they'll get this automatic text on their phone. So thank you for inspecting 8 Skinner's Dole Point. I will call you in the following days to get your feedback. If you have any questions in the meantime, please SMS or call me. Regards, you at Your Real Estate. Now, the second part of this is an hour later, the system will go send email after the inspection. And we have the trig, which is called the after inspection thank you. And it knows what property they've been to. It will then select the property details and it will send them this. Thank you for inspecting 8 Skinners. If you have any questions, please contact me. Nice brochure of the property with the agent's details. So they're getting that on a Saturday without you even having to be in the office. So that's the third trigger I've showed you today. And that is the property inspection one. Super powerful, getting great feedback, especially if you're using Home Pass. It just sinks in and then triggers those 2 automatic things to happen after it. So back at the Luke's record on 8 Skinners, I'm going to go back to the listing. Now, as we're looking at the listing as an agent in the activity area, as I mentioned before, this is a great way for you to see all of the buyers and their activity around this property. So all inquiries, inspections, contracts, and offers. Now, throughout the campaign, you need to be using this to your advantage. And SMS, if you don't have it set up, do it. It's cheap, it's fast, it's highly effective, and the return on investment is through the roof. But you should always be using SMS to small targeted groups, especially around property activity. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that if your property has a price reduction, if it's got an auction on the weekend, if you've just sold it, or if you've just listed one that's similar down the road, you want to let all these buyers know. So go to your property in the activity, load the inquiries, and you can use the send SMS option. You can then tick to include your inspections, your contracts, and your offers. So you have some cool tools here to bring more people into the communication. I have 5 people that have a mobile number, and I now can pick one of our standard templates called price reduction. So we're sitting down with the vendor, we're at their house, we've just reduced the price. We're going to now send this off to all the buyers in front of them, and we hit the send option, and we've sent off a beautiful SMS saying the price is now reduced. We'll be presenting all offers tonight. You can change the text if you want by editing anything in here, and you can hit send, and it instantly goes out from your mobile number, and they can reply to your phone. Okay, had some great stories about people just doing this with their vendor and having SMSs coming back to them. Okay, so that's a really, really cool, powerful tool. But using SMS, you can do emails as well. But what I'm trying to show you here is that small targeted groups with SMS, it's really cheap, really powerful and effective, and has a 99% open rate. Whereas emails might have a 35 to 40 if you've got a really good email list. So that's a great way to communicate with buyers throughout. Now, if we click on my name to go back to my record, we've done a fair bit around putting buyers in the system. And hopefully over the course of the weeks and months, you start to see your buyer database grow. So here's my buyer number. I've got 27. Now, we've got accounts with 16,000, 30,000 buyers, but we want to see that number continually going up, but always try and remember nice, clean, quality data will be better. Now, we're going to look at another trigger here, which is a way for you to communicate with your buyers on a weekly basis. If we go back into the engine and we look at the triggers, you have one called the newsletter. Now, the newsletter trigger is a way for you to communicate with either your whole database or just your buyers every week using a really nice standard default template we have in your system. Now, with the newsletter trigger, we hit the edit and this will be turned off. So we have to hit activate, and in the edit area, you'll also then need to select the first date and time you want this to send. So if I was to say tomorrow and change the time to 10 a.m., I then want this to repeat every Thursday at 10 a.m. forever. That's what this is saying. So I can save that and put that on. I won't save it because I don't want it to send to my database. It'll test people, but you would hit edit and you would then save it down the bottom here by hitting edit trigger, and that would activate it. Now, there's also a part of this inside the trigger actions is that you specify who it's going to in the recipients. If you want it to go to your whole database, and this all depends on the size of your database. If it was my office, my business, and I only had 100 people in it, I'd be doing it to everyone. But if you have a huge buyer database, you might just do this to your buyers every week. So you can select it to go to your buyers or to your whole database and then edit the trigger. So I've just left it off in my account. It's not something that I want sending, but this is what the system will do on a weekly basis every Thursday at 10 when I activate this. It will go into the client's database, and I'm going to have it go to all my clients. It will then say send email. and it's looking up the 27 people that have an email. It's then loading in the Trig newsletter template. I selected the wrong one, sorry. Trig newsletter. And this template, it's already put together in your system, but it defaults to a nice message at the top that you can change. Okay, it then goes into all your open homes that are coming up. It then has the rest of the properties that are for sale that aren't open, so it doesn't duplicate. It then goes down to any properties you have for rent and any properties you've sold in the last 3 months. Now, I don't have any sales there, but it's a nice list that is changing the properties on a weekly basis based on you selling, having open homes, or listing new properties. And that's automatically going out to my database every Thursday at 10 a.m. So that's a really good trigger to have on for all of your accounts for great communication to all of your database. Now, inside the engine triggers, I missed one, sorry, when we were talking about the activity. The home open alert trigger is an alert to everyone on a property that has made an inquiry that hasn't inspected it yet, that sends them off an alert letting them know of the open home. So if I hit the edit trigger, you would activate this. In the edit option, it's going to find any properties that have open homes in the next 3 days. And I want this to start from a Thursday. So it will find any open home on a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And it will then send a nice email off to all the buyers who have inquired but not inspected to let them know of the open home. So if we go into my properties and I go into 8 Skinners, because we're using that today as our test, and we go into the marketing port opens area, you can see that this one here, we're going to set an inspection time for this Saturday, 9 a.m. for 20 minutes. Now, if you look at the activity, we have 4 inquiries. What the system will do automatically is go send email. It will grab all of the people who have inquired that haven't inspected, and it will send them off this template, which is the Trig Open Home Alert. Okay, it's sending, hi Luke and Nat, we'd like to invite you to the upcoming open home for 8 Skinners. We look forward to seeing you at this date and this time. For more information, please see below or contact me on my mobile from the listing agent. So a nice open home reminder going off to all your inquiries that haven't inspected it yet. And you can change that, but that's the default that we have in LockedOn. So that's a really, really good buyer alert for all of your listings that have opens coming up. Okay, so in the engine, that was in your triggers to view all the open home alert. Now we've covered off on basically all of the triggers in the system here now for you guys. So you can see that there's a lot of these. Well, 1, 2, or maybe let's call the inquiry response, the open home alert and property inspection are really buyer related to give you great follow-up with buyers and great communication. The birthday one relates to all clients, and your newsletter one can relate to just buyers, or it can relate to your whole database, depending on how you set that up. But if you want to learn more about the triggers, you can go to www.lockedon.tv. Whoops, can't spell. LockedOn.tv. This will then direct you through to our YouTube channel, and on the main screen, you'll see a playlist called Triggers, which has a detailed movie about how you activate and turn on each one of those triggers that we've talked about. Okay, so triggers is the future of LockedOn. It's where we're going to build more and more automation where things will happen automatically throughout your account as long as you're putting the data into the system. Okay, guys, so that brings us to the end of the first session around buyers. I'm just going to pause the recording now. Recording done. Okay, so phase 2 of this is looking at your buyers, your sellers, sorry, and the DNA plans that go with it and vendor reporting. Now, sellers are where we make all the money in real estate. On the dashboard, you see this number here that's called potential sellers. Now, this is your most important number, really. If I was to look at any account, an agent, an office, and see this number being really low, it'd be quite concerning. Potential sellers is basically a definition of you know them, they know you, and they own a property in your area. So that's what the definition of a potential seller is. So if I only have 19, that's concerning. I want to really see a couple of hundred in there. So if I click on the 19 though, it does filter to all my potential sellers and show me everyone in that list. Now, if we clear that filter, I can then search for my record. We're going to use me as an example again. So Luke and Natalie are a buyer, and this shows you that buyers can be sellers. So if I go into the information area, on the general tab, we have potential seller, which I'm going to tick. I then hit the update information. If we go back to the main screen to show you this, it still says 19. That's what this little refresh is for. The refresh will recount and then tell you that you have more people in as a potential seller in the database. So looking at the people that we have in the list now of potential sellers, we should see my name down the bottom. There we are. So going into my account, information, we're turned on as a potential seller. Now, whenever you add someone as a potential seller, you want to start adding the properties against them. So in the properties area, you can see we have the vendor tab, and this tells me that Luke and Natalie already own 8 Skinners as a listing, 17 Malua that we've exchanged or sold, and 123 as a listing. So this is a pretty good client, and that means that I've already added this data against them. So this doesn't auto pull in from anywhere. You have to add it. We're going to treat Luke and Nat that they're a really good client, and they also have another investment property, and that's in the street they live in, Malua Street. So we hit actions, and we link a new property to them, and we hit add property. Now, instead of it being 56 Malua, let's just call it 59. And we then select it from the Google Street Maps, which loads it in, and we can say that this is a house. Now, as soon as you've filled in the basic details here, you can add a property, and this will link it to your vendor. So you can see over on the right, we have the vendor, solicitor, purchaser, purchase solicitor. That all comes into play when you sell it. But right now, if I click back on my vendor and I look at their properties, we now see 4, 56 Malua being a potential. So that's a really good way if someone calls you, open up their record, you can see what properties they own or what you've appraised or sold for them in this tab, properties, vendor. Going back into the property now, we're going to be talking about the 5 main stages of property life cycles throughout Australia and New Zealand. So when you first meet someone, there's a little icon here. You might not be able to read. I'll just try and zoom in. Oh, I've zoomed out. So this little icon here tells you it's a potential. What's important is that as we're going through the stages, you hit this button, update status, and you then can change your statuses. So I'm just going to zoom out. The 5 stages of the property life cycle throughout Australia and New Zealand are potential. That is someone you've met through prospecting that may have a property to sell, or that has a property that's in your area you can sell, or it's someone who's purchased off you and they've got an anniversary plan against them. The next stage is that you get invited to appraise it. The next stage is that you hopefully win that and you list it. You then market it successfully, it becomes exchanged or unconditional, depending on what you call it. And then from exchange, we nurture that through to settlement. And that's when the purchaser takes the keys and they now own the property. So at the start of this, they are a potential. Filling in the basic summary is again adding your notes around this property. So in the actions, you can then add notes for this property and they will appear in the summary section. It will also show you all the tasks, emails, SMSs you've sent for this property, all in the summary section. So that's your notes screen. In the information is the basic details about this property. So beds, bath, car, when did they last buy it, last sold date, year built, land size, council valuations. You can also create your own groups and keywords for this. And you can enter in key numbers, alarm codes, and internal descriptions about the property. You can then fill in the land and any additional features, and against any client or property, you have the documents option that you might want to scan your agency agreement or the council documents and put them against this property. What's important today is that we understand the 5 stages. They all have their own DNA plan that comes with your LockedOn account. So when you install the Aaron Shiner pack, we give you DNA plans to follow up every property at every stage of the life cycle. We also give you around 90 letters that come standard with the system, 50 SMSs and 50 email templates. So all of that's already in your account, ready to go. But here's where it all comes to play. You meet someone who has a property. You haven't been invited to appraise it yet. You go actions, you apply DNA, and you can now see all of the standard Aaron Shiner plans going in number order. So starting at number 1, this is a potential appraisal. I haven't appraised yet. I can hit apply. This then sets the DNA plan against this potential for the agent to be in contact with this particular person. Now, these DNA plans we give you, they have emails, SMSs, phone calls, letters, tasks in them. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If you're a new agent, this stuff is critical so that you can build a relationship with the person, give yourself the best shot to be invited to get an appraisal. If we look at the completed option here, I actually just set a plan against this person. I didn't send that SMS. The system sent this automatically, which is a potential appraisal, nice to meet you. Because in LockedOn with all of our DNA plans, we have the ability to turn on automation. Now, if you're an admin user and you go into the engine area of LockedOn, Inside the DNA plans, you can hit view all and you will see all of our standard DNA plans. If we look at the potential plan here, or you go into any plan, in that matter, you'll see all the items inside that plan. Now, when this plan loads, I'm just going to show you now the automation aspect that each user has the ability to turn on. Please note that automation is not turned on as a default when you install the Orange Shiner packs. It's something you have to turn on and feel comfortable with. But if you open up the number one potential appraisal plan, anything that's purple or green is an email or SMS. If you hit the edit option, you'll see that on the template side, you can automate this by turning that on. This one was already on. If you look at the email below it, I have that automated because you can see it there as automated. We can see the next SMS is automated. This email at 71 days is not automated. So if I hit edit, it will then load the template and it will allow me to add in automation. I can then save that and it will then turn on automation for that particular item inside the DNA plan. So next time I use that email at 71 days will send automatically off to the particular person I'm trying to get an appraisal with. And you can see the automated option is now updated. So inside all of your DNA plans, you have the ability to go through and turn on automation. Now I'm going to go back to the property here. That's a little bit on DNA, and there's some tutorial movies around doing the automation. If we look at the tasks, and we can see there's a whole lot of actions to follow up this client to get them to an appraisal. There's also this. Whenever you see this little circle icon or infinity icon, it basically means that the task is repeating. This is another extraordinary feature inside LockedOn's DNA plans, is that you can have full recurring tasks on all of your potential, appraisal, and anniversary plans. So what does this mean for you as an agent? It means that anytime you meet a new lead and they don't progress to an appraisal, you are going to call them every year on the day you met them until they want an appraisal, because that phone call lasts forever. As soon as you complete it, it books in the one for next year. If you do an appraisal and they don't list with you inside the first year, they get an appraisal reminder every year on the day you did an appraisal with an SMS or a phone call, which says, hey, it's been 1 year since your appraisal. We'd love to give you an update. It's been 2 years since your appraisal, 3 years since your appraisal. Every sale you now make and you use our plans, your vendor and your purchaser will get an SMS or an email from you saying, congratulations, it's been 1 year since you purchased or sold your property. We hope everything's going well. If we can be of any assistance, give us a call. Congratulations, it's been 2 years, 3 years. That will last forever until you close your LockedOn account or they die or you die. Really powerful stuff. So we'll show you those DNA plans, but automation and reoccurring is changing the game of how these DNA plans work. So you're building a relationship with Luke and Natalie, and inside your tasks, you're actually starting to complete some of these items and they're being ticked off as completed, and any email or SMS is actually automatically sending. So you're just getting replies from them straight away. If you get to the point where Luke and Natalie say, look, thanks for your last email, we'd love to have an appraisal, you then go into your information and, sorry, you go into life cycle. In the appraisal area, you book in the appraisal. So I'm going to book this in for tomorrow, 9 a.m. It will take 1 hour. We can set that appointment, okay? And we can update that. We could save it into a calendar if we'd like to, that appointment. Once that's booked in and I go out and I see my client, I come back and I enter in their price, my price, minimum, max, and a percentage there. And it'll estimate their commission and any notes. What's important is that we then know how to progress to the next plan. So when the appraisal's been completed, we can update the status to appraised. Inside the tasks area now, we need to remove the plan that's no longer relevant. So I don't want to send them an automatic SMS or email saying, hey, are you thinking of appraisal when I've just completed one? I need to filter to the potential appraisal plan. I need to select all the tasks that haven't been completed and I need to delete them. Once they're all deleted, I'm now in a position to set my appraisal follow-up. So I've come back to the office. I can apply my next plan, which is my appraisal plan, and I can action that now. Because my appraisal date is booked in, it's now going to action all of the items from the appraisal date against this particular property. Again, automation, emails, letters. Just to show you how letters work is they'll show up in your list of your tasks for the day. There's my first letter to my appraisal. I hit the complete option. It will automatically download that document, give me a green download button, and I'll then be able to print that in Microsoft Word. Now, another thing to note, a big feature we've just updated that we haven't really released yet is that all letters will merge overnight. So when you actually come into your account in the morning, you'll see your letters and it'll just be download, and you hit the download option and it will give you the document, and you'll then just be able to print that straight away without having to wait for the server to actually merge that. So that's a big feature, a big update that the system's done now. If your letters are in the future, it will merge them at night and you'll see all your letters that day ready to go, already merged for you to print. Again, we give you over 100 sales letters. So that's something that would take anyone months, years to collate, put together. There's over 100 different letters throughout the potential appraisal, listing, sales side when you're using our DNA plans. Now, if we go back to my property, just use the back option. I'll go back into 59 Malua Street. We've got our appraisal plan set. That plan has a whole lot of contacts up for 2 years, and then it goes into repeating phone calls and SMSs every year until they decide to list with you or tell you to go away. Now, looking at this particular plan, let's say we've moved to the next stage and we've listed it, okay? So you would then go to update status, put your property as listed, save it, and you would then start to put the property as a listing. You would then go into the filter, find your appraisal plan that you had, and you would select it, and you would delete any appraisal tasks you have. Now, I'm not going to turn this appraisal into a listing because I already have a listing that I want to use today. In my properties area, when I click it, it shows me my listings, and we're going to go to our 8 Skinners Avenue. Now, when I get a listing, in the life cycle listing tab, I fill in all the listing information. So I'm not going to bore you with data entry. This is things like the agents, the price, vendor paid amount, when it was listed, auction date if needed. You're then in the marketing set up the details. So heading, caption, there's a few extra advanced features in there as well, but you put in your website links, virtual tours, everything goes into the details. Then you've got your images, which you can upload and reorder as needed. When you're uploading to sites, it will go in whatever order you have here. You can set your opens, and if you're using us for uploading, you go into portals. You turn on what portal you want it to go to. So I'll just turn on a few more here. And it's going to these 5 sites, and then I hit upload, and it's now pushed out to all of the places. And we taught you how to do your buy and match and your just listeds. So when a property becomes listed, in the tasks area, I'll just delete these tasks that we have here. You can use the Aaron Shiner DNA plans to have a checklist to how you get a new listing up and running. Now, we understand every office has their own different checklists, and sometimes our ones may not suit what you're doing. But if you're a new user or you're new to real estate, these are really going to help you. You'll go to the actions and you'll use the apply DNA, and you will set 3 listing awaiting contracts. Now, in some states, you write your own contracts. Some you have to request them from the solicitor. It doesn't really matter. It can be called new listing plan. You can relabel it if you want, but you apply this plan, and it's a checklist of all the things that should happen wherever you are to help get a property ready to go to market. So organize photos, organize signboards, book your group inspection, give feedback to the vendor. If it's tenanted, send this letter. So there's a whole lot of actions, letters, emails, SMSs that can help build the relationship with your vendor, give great service over the first few days to get the property ready to go to market when all the photos and advertising is done. So that's the first plan you set. Now that plan, it only lasts 14 days. So generally we're hopefully thinking within the first 2 weeks, you have all the photos, you have all the marketing, you're ready to advertise the property. All of these would be completed. So I'm just going to select them all and delete it. When you first launch the property, and again, this is completely up to you, you can set our vendor management plan. And we start this from the first Monday that we launch it. So we go actions, apply DNA, and we set this from here, number 3.1, gone live. So if I launch this live on a Friday or a Saturday, I want to set this from the next Monday coming up. So I'd set that from the Monday the 8th, and I add this plan. And from the Monday the 8th, it's going to set really good vendor communication, follow-up, letters, emails, SMSs, to let them know we're working on their property. So that's now set against them. And if you're new to real estate, again, use this plan. It's going to show you tasks, a whole lot of things for you to do, but you can also just delete things in your tasks if they're not relevant. So you might not say, oh, I want to do that phone call, that task today. You can just remove it. So tasks is your daily actions from all these DNA plans I'm showing you. It becomes the backbone of your success once you start putting every person you meet, property, listing, sale on DNA plans. Okay, we'll come back to that in a second. So as we're setting the DNA plan against our property, which is the vendor management plan, we have the property on the market. Hopefully you're taking buyer inquiries, you're doing open homes, you're negotiating contracts, you're getting offers on the property. And all of this compiles into your vendor report. So you have to be reporting to your vendor, and we would say do it weekly. To do this in LockedOn, you have a tab in the activity called vendor reports. And to add a vendor report, you go actions and you hit add vendor report. And if we're doing it weekly, we specify, look, from last week, it was the 28th, and I do mine on the 3rd. So that's a week, and I update my notes in the activity, inspection, report summary, and we have a whole lot of toggles here that we can customize what's on the report and what's not. But here's one I set up earlier. So this is going from like ages ago, and I always do this. I move it out to when we're doing today, so you can see the sample data we've put in. Generally, it's week to week, but you can do it from the start listing date to the current date and change this each week and update your notes. Now, if you update your vendor report, you'll have the option here to download. So this is option 1 with vendor reporting. You can create a nice looking PDF which collates all the information around the property stats, and it puts it into something that you can print off, or you can email and send, sorry, not email, you print off and you send it to your vendor. So we have the key numbers across the top, stats for the week, inquiries for the week, inspections for the week, contracts sent, offers, any campaign items and any payments, and all your notes to go with it. So that's option 1. Option 2 is you can email this to your vendor by hitting the email report. This will then merge the PDF into a nice looking email with our standard email vendor report template, which again can be customized, but this is our standard one we give you. Your branding, the photo of the property, a nice email with some information to your vendor, your signature, and when you're sending this, it has the PDF attachment on it, and you hit send and that goes to your vendor. Now, the third way of vendor reporting is kind of like the jewel in the crown. It's the best part about LockedOn and communicating with vendors. It gets you the best feedback, and it's also a huge listing presentation tool, is your vendor portal. So you can actually give access to your vendor to log on online and see this property and all its stats by turning this on. Now, once you've turned that on, you actually have to go to your vendor's record. You go into the contacts area and you invite them to join vendorportal.com.au. So this will send them a nice looking email that says, please set up your password for vendorportal.com.au for your exclusive access into your property whilst it's online. They then set up their password. And if we go back to that property, this is what will happen when they log in. So your vendor sets up their password. They log into their vendor portal online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And every time they log in, so let's pretend I'm the vendor, you're the agent. I've logged in, I'm checking this at midnight. You get an alert on your phone saying, hey, your vendor, Luke Newton, is checking out their report right now. Inside this portal, we have the notes. We have the key numbers across the top. We have their photo grayscaled. We then go into all the inquiries, all the inspections, contracts, and offers. It has their heading, their marketing caption, and all their photos that they can click on and scroll through. It also shows any documents that you want them to see inside their portal that you've linked to their property in LockedOn. On the right has your agent's photos, details. They can email you from here, your upcoming opens, and the portals you're active on. So it's a very nice visual layout to give them full report information about their property and any documents you want to associate with this particular property. They then can sign out and sign in whenever they need, but whenever they sign in, you are instantly getting an alert that your vendor is checking out their portal. So that's a really, really powerful tool. It's extreme. It's probably even more powerful for you in your presentations to show something that's different and to show them how good your vendor reporting is. And I would take my laptop in and sit there and show them a past property and preview the vendor portal on that. Okay, so that's the really, really powerful part. Now, let's look at this. When a property gets to the point that you've successfully reported to your vendor, you've taken buyer criteria, you've got offers accepted, you're now writing up the offer, the property would become under offer. So in my life cycle listing, I tick this as under offer, and we can update that. And if we look at my listings, we can see what properties are under offer because you'll see the little under offer tag on them. So they're pending sale. There's a contract on these ones at the moment. I'm going to use one that's gone to the next stage that's actually exchanged. So if I use my filters and I go exchanged, we have 17 Malua Street. Now with 17 Malua Street, I've added my solicitor. I've added my purchaser and my purchaser solicitor. These are all controlled on the right-hand side of the screen. So I'll just remove George as the purchaser, And if I needed to add him, he'd be a client because he's already inspected the property. I hit purchaser, I type in here, George Newton, and I link him to this property. So now you can see this panel over here shows me all the parties that are linked to this property. When the property is exchanged, I hit update and I'm putting it to exchange. So again, exchange could be unconditional depending on what state you're in, but it basically means that all the conditions of the sale, once you've written up the contract, are being met and it's now pending settlement. So that's my exchanged property. When we're putting this together in the life cycle sales advice, we are filling in all the details here. Again, I'm not going to go through data entry with you today. These are things like dates, prices, but you just need to fill in your sales advice when you get an offer accepted. The property becomes exchanged, and I just need to check if there's any tasks on this. Yeah, we'll just remove these. When a property becomes exchanged, the day you get the call from your solicitor, it says, congratulations, it's sold. You can then go to actions, apply DNA, and this is the only time really you set 2 DNA plans at once. You're going to set an exchange to settlement plan for your vendor starting from today, and this gives the listing agent all the letters, congratulations on sale, all the letters to the solicitor, communication to his vendor and his solicitor throughout the exchange to settlement process. You also then actions apply a DNA if you sold it as well. So if someone in your office sold it or you sold it, you set the purchaser one, and this will give all of the actions, phone calls, letters for your selling agent to be in contact with their buyer and their solicitor to make sure that settlement happens. Congratulations on your purchase, etc. So all of those will get you from sold to settled. Now, as we're going through the settled process, and some people like to update their property as sold on websites at exchange, some like to leave it to settled. But in the marketing portal section, I like to upload it when it's actually exchanged. I would change it to sold. I need the sold date, sold price. They're in there, and I'm going to upload this to REA and domain as sold. Okay, so it depends. You can do that at settlement. Some people do it at exchange. That's really when they want to track it as an exchange point. Okay, so the property's sold. You've got your DNA plans against it. I'm just going from New South Wales experience here is that generally settlements can take 6 weeks. Some places are quicker depending on what you negotiate them to. But you're completing a lot of the tasks that are inside here. All of your congratulations stuff, you're communicating with potential sellers. All of it's controlled through your DNA plan. Now, let's say 6 weeks have passed and the solicitor calls you up and says, congratulations, Luke, that property at 17 Malua Street is now settled. So in my properties database, I can clear the filter. I'll look for my exchange list and I have 17 Malua. 17 Malua Street, I now update the status and I say it's settled. This is the end of the whole process. The final part to move this from Luke and Natalie Newton, who are the vendor, to George Newton, who's purchasing it, is to use this button called Transfer Property. Transfer Property will now allow me to answer a few simple questions to move the property from Luke to Nat and set all our anniversary plans. The first question for your seller, do you want to remove all uncompleted items against them? You generally leave that on because there's nothing to follow up once the property's settled. Do you want to assign a new DNA? Now, some people don't like to keep in contact with their vendors. They might be moving out of the area. Completely your call. I would always keep in contact with them once a year. So my settled vendor, I set a 6.1 plan, and that is just simply an SMS or a phone call every year on the date they sold their property just to touch base. My vendor might be moving to another property, so I can update his address there. For now, we'll leave it. And we can be adding tags to them. So anyone who sells with me, I add to VIP. Now, for the purchaser, do we want to create this property attached to them as a new potential? We do. And do we want to assign a DNA to them? And in the DNA 6.2 or 6.3, it's whether they're going to be a live-in or an investor. So a live-in purchaser, they're going to be moving into it. Do we want to update their tags? Just pretend I don't have the VIP one on this person, but I say, yes, I want to put them in my VIP list. They've purchased a property off me. And will they remain an active buyer? We'll say no, they found their dream home. And do we want to update their postal address to be this property? We say yes. Now, as we transfer this, you see the process happening and it's ticking off each part of the checklist as it's completing each particular part. At the end of this, it will say, congratulations. You've now successfully transferred the property to your new purchaser and all of your anniversary plans are set for your listing and selling agents. If we go to the new property, we can see that this is for George Newton. It's a potential. And in the task, we now have plans for my selling agent, which was Dave, to keep in contact with George forever with anniversary calls, emails, SMSs going out every year on the day that he purchased the property automatically until he dies or I die or stop using LockedOn. That is super powerful for any business owner or principal to know that every transaction your business has ever made, they will always be hearing from you on that date. Now, some people I speak to have had real estate businesses for 30, 40 years. Imagine every sale they've ever had, their first sale, getting an email or SMS from you saying, hey, it's been 41 years since you purchased that home office. Like, that stuff is powerful. They're never going to list with anyone else if they're getting that regular communication and updates from you every year through automation. That's what the power of LockedOn's automatic plans are now. So guys, we're running a bit over time, so I'm not going to pause for questions here, but that's the property life cycle using the DNA plans going all the way through to the end. I want to jump in for the last 5 minutes on the just sold stuff. So if we go to the dashboard, this is my favorite part of the system because it's where you really see high conversion numbers and the power of the database. If you sell a property like we just did in Malua Street, and you have a really good database. So I mean, you're adding potential sellers. You've got a lot of appraisals in there. You've sold properties and your data is super clean. This is where it becomes fun and easy. I can go into my properties database and I'm going to now find my highest conversion calls I can make in real estate by going into the find option, property details. I'm going to search for the street name Malua, and I want to find any potential or appraised property I have in that street and hit apply. Now, I have 6 properties in that street that I've either sold to or appraised. With this, I can now go actions, create hit lists, and I turn LockedOn, hit list or quick list. We'll use quick list for now. Hit list you can save when there's a bigger list of people, but I have 6 direct phone calls that I can make to people I know in the street that have a property. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a house owner myself, and I don't get calls from real estate agents when something sells in the area. Now, I know that I'm on a few of their databases, but if I was to get a phone call whenever anything close to me sold, I would listen to that. I would want to take that call. I would call the agent back if he left me a message because I want to know what property values are doing around the property that I own. So if you're an agent, you've sold a property, and as soon as you put that sold sign up, you can go into your system and call 6 of the hottest people you know. And by hot, I mean they know you, they have a property, and you've got a relationship with them. Not one of these people wouldn't want to know what that property just sold for before they go online and find it out. So you need to take advantage of this and go into the actions, view summary, call your vendor, speak to them, tell them about the sold price, find out what they're thinking, and let them know how that result has affected their property value. You then call the next person, 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 the next person. You've made 6 calls to that street. Now I'm going to go back to properties and I'm going to search again. I'm going to search the street next to it. I'm going to search the street next to it. I'm going to try and make 30 phone calls to a hot database around a just sold calls. When I've finished my calls, I'm going to do a bulk marketing just sold alert. And I'm going to do that via SMS because I know SMS has a 99% open rate. It's cheap and it's fast. The way I do this is by going into details. Advanced find. I search property details and I search the suburb. And in Malua, I want to find any potential I have or any appraisal. And I look at that. Oh, spelt it wrong. I'm looking for the suburb. So in the property details, I'm searching suburb Dolls Point, not the street. And I'm searching all the potentials and appraisals. And the actual street that I sold was a record. And the reason I'm updating the whole suburb is because I've now got the suburb record for the price. If I go apply, I can see I have 6 records in Dolls Point. Remember, this is my sample database. So if you were searching your main suburb, you might have 600, 700 records. If you then go send SMS, you can send an SMS to every owner of every property in your core suburb. And you can use a template in here that we give you called sold. And you can edit these templates. So the property we sold was it was 17 Malua. Okay, we select the settled one and then we update the preview and it's got great result. We just sold 17 Malua around the corner from the property you own for 800,000. I can change that text and put in there, this is a suburb record. If you would like to know the new value of your property, give me a call ASAP. You can put whatever you want into that, but can you see how effective it is to find your warm to hot clients and get out an alert around a just sold? The most important marketing you can do in real estate by far is just sold calls, just sold marketing. Vendors want to know what things are selling for around the property they own. That's what you're building this database for. And I can guarantee you, 100% guarantee that you will have no other calls in real estate that are higher conversion than just sold calls. Okay. So make sure you have the data, you have it clean, and you can take advantage of the just sold tools that you have by finding streets and bulk marketing, because this will yield the best return on investment in your database by far. Okay. The last thing here to finish up on is that your tasks become the backbone of your career. Hopefully you saw that by using the DNA plans for potentials, appraisals, listings, settlements, that all of this you're putting into the system and applying will generate tasks for you every day. Now, I don't know if you've been to seminars. No one's been to seminars for a long time because of COVID, but I used to do seminars all the time, going to them, watching them, hearing the guys speak. And the top performers would always say, look, I come into my office every day, turn on my computer, and I have 35 to 40 connections to make to warm to hot people. All they're doing is using a system, plans to come in and look at their tasks and say, who do I have to speak to today that's on my list? When you get to the point that you turn LockedOn on, you're starting to see 15, 20 connections a day. That's because you've got enough data in the system, you've done enough appraisals, you've done enough prospecting. There is only one way your business can go, and that's up. You will only get busier and busier when you start to see your task numbers go up. There's a direct correlation between numbers of tasks you do and how busy you are. And a good indication of that is when you start to get too many tasks, that's a time for you to grow and start thinking of a PA, because you cannot physically connect with all the people you have in your database based on the plans that you're running. So there's some good things to think about and things we've learned throughout the time. So guys, I want to thank you for coming to the LockedOn webinar this month. It's been great to show you around the system and all the basic features and some advanced stuff in there as well. As I said, this will be recorded. I'll send you an email with the recording. It will go up on our YouTube channel. So you'll have that by Friday and the ability to rewatch this webinar. Again, thanks for all of your time today, guys, and I look forward to catching up with you soon.